All right, well, we will bring to order the Architectural Board of Review for December 9th, 2024. Start with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll proceed with roll call. Vice Chair Whalen,
Here.
Board Member Anderson,
Here.
Board Member Black,
Here.
Board Member Noon,
Here.
Board Member Six,
Here.
Board Member Sovereign,
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay. Let's move into general business. Item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. And if there is no one in the audience to make a comment, so we're going to turn our attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised on virtual attendance, and we did not receive any written correspondence for general public comment. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, we will close general public comment and move on to item B, approval of the minutes from the full meeting on November 19th. I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, let's move on to the approval of the minutes for the consent meeting on September 9th.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. These are on the screen, and just to clarify, we ratified the actions of the September 9th consent meeting last hearing because it was missed from the October 28th agenda, which is why it seems like a while ago. But yeah, just
Gotcha.
need to approve the minutes now.
Okay. I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on November 4th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black.
This is for November 4?
Yes.
Okay, I have to abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then finally, November 18th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar for today, December 9th.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I will announce the action taken on today's consent calendar. Item A, the only item, 324 East Valerio Street, received project design approval.
Okay, Do I have a motion from anyone?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Oh, pardon the interruption. Can you please make a motion to ratify the actions, not
Oh.
approve?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Ratify the actions to approve.
Okay. Thanks. Let's take a
Second.
vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon, Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, and then item E, any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals?
One announcement from staff, and just a reminder that this is the last ABR full board hearing of 2024. There is a consent hearing scheduled for December 16th, 2024, in that community development and most city administrative offices are closed for the holidays from December 20th, 2024 to January 3rd, 2025. So the next ABR consent and full board hearings are scheduled for January 6th, 2024. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Do we know who's doing consent for January, February?
Those will be voted on at the January 6th full board hearing, the consent calendars, but for that first January 6th hearing, I will be emailing for volunteers for that first one. So look out for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then item F, any subcommittee reports?
Yes, Chair Anderson, I wanted to update as the alternate on the objective design and development standards. This went to the Ordinance Committee on December 3rd, and I wanted to report that there were 2 changes made that were recommended by the Ordinance Committee to the City Council, that they remove the industrial designation from 2 areas. One was the upper state area, and the other is the area around Plaza Veracruz. That's the trampoline park. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. We can move on, yeah, okay. To item number 1, it's a continued item. Review after final approval for Highway 101 HOV improvements. Proposal to construct 1.5 miles of high occupancy vehicle lanes in addition to highway improvements on the highway main line and ramps to improve vehicle recovery and sight distance. The project limits extend from Olive Mill Road to approximately 0.5 miles north of the Cabrillo Boulevard northbound on-ramp and is referred to as Segment 4E. Segment 4E is the last segment of an 11-mile HOV lane project from Carpinteria to Santa Barbara. The highway improvements also include reconfiguration of the Cabrillo Boulevard interchange to the standard right-hand side on and off ramps, 2 new bridges over Cabrillo Boulevard, the replacement of existing roadway pavement, installation of sound walls and retaining walls, and upgrades to drainage, signage, lighting, and barriers. All improvements are proposed within the existing public right-of-way. Planning Commission granted approval of a CDP on December 21st, 2023. Review after final is requested for design revisions to Segment 4E South only from approximately Olive Mill Road to Hermosillo Road. Plans must be in substantial conformance with the plans that received final approval on May 13th, 2024. Welcome back. Do we have anything from staff?
Yes, real quick. So you did give project design approval for the whole segment 4E, but you may recall that you only gave final approval for the south section, 4E South. So this is a review after final for the 4E South.
Okay.
North will be coming to you, it's pending later on.
Okay. Any questions for staff before we jump in? Okay, well, you have 15 minutes. Introduce yourselves, please, and take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Emerson. I'm a Caltrans project manager.
Fred Luna, I work with SB CAG, project sponsor.
Kirsten Ayers, our company provides the community outreach for the project.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen, for introducing the project change. As you know, this project did receive final approval. We're actually in construction right now. Cars are pushed to the exterior, we're doing work in the median. Later, after this first of the year, we'll change to the configuration which matches the Montecito section, in which northbound traffic will be in the median, and then we'll start repairing those northbound lanes. What I'm here today to discuss is a potential revision to Sound Wall 108. And if you recall, the past couple times we came before the board, we had some discussions. Chair, I think you brought up some questions about Sound Wall 108. It's located right on the edge of the shoulder, which means it's right on the edge of the pavement on top of a traffic barrier. And so the question and the request at that time was, is there any way to move that wall off of the barrier and create a planter space? And so that's what I'm here today to discuss. And then there are a couple variations. So there's basically three things we want to talk about. And that is either keep the condition as is with the approved wall in its location as it was drawn, or we can shift 1,200 feet of that sound wall back, and I've got some graphics that will show this a little better. We can move 1,200 feet of that sound wall back to the right-of-way or close to the right-of-way, and therefore making room in front of that sound wall for trees and shrubs. That option does require the removal of 40 additional trees, though, so it's a trade-off. So part of the reason that we had to seriously contemplate this was at the time the request was made, we didn't know how much our project was going to cost and whether we had the budget to afford this sort of a change. Turns out we do. The price came in a little bit under our programmed amount, so we set aside some funds to incorporate some architectural changes, and this would be one of them if it was decided we want to go this direction. The other option is option 2, and it shifts only 850 feet of that sound wall back to the right-of-way line. That removes only an additional 19 trees. I will say with option 1, that requires a temporary construction easement. So that last 350 feet, which is the southernmost portion of the wall, it is against private property. So we would acquire a temporary construction easement from those homeowners to build the tree and end up taking 20 more trees on their private property. All the trees that are being removed with any of these alternatives can be mitigated on site. Before you see the current Sound Wall 108 alignment, and you can see if I can just orient you. This is north is headed up. Butterfly Lane and Hermosillo off-ramp are there on the left side of the page. Olive Mill overcrossing is on the right side. And then, of course, center to the image is the Spring Street southbound off-ramp, and then the sound wall that we're talking about today. So the red part of the sound wall is just sound wall on barrier, where it's red and blue. That's actually a sound wall on top of a retaining wall. And then that was the simulation that we showed. This wasn't the final rendering. I don't think we prepared a final rendering, which showed some of the last-minute direction as far as pilasters and color of block. We never updated the simulation, but we have the graphics that go along with that. But they would essentially show you how the walls on the side of the freeway, on the edge of the pavement, and the skyline trees mostly remain intact. This is what the section of that looks like. So by having that wall at the edge of pavement on top of a retaining wall, we can maintain those existing skyline trees, and then we have room to plant more trees. They're behind the wall, of course. And then the vines that we plant are at the base of that retaining wall, and they have to grow up the retaining wall, and then they're holes cored in the sound wall portion, and they can grow to the freeway side and cover the wall from that height. But it will take a significant number of years to achieve that result. So this will be what I'm calling option 1, and this is moving the entire 1,200 feet of the wall back to the right-of-way, or close to it, I'll say. Our neighbor here on this 850-foot portion is UP Railroad. In that case, in that location, we would build the wall 5 feet away from the right-of-way. That way we avoid getting property rights from the railroad, which would blow our schedule. And it allows us to get back there for maintenance in the future. We've got a 4 or 5 foot wide pathway so that maintenance folks can access the back, trim the vines, paint over the graffiti. Not only that, but it limits the amount of vegetation and slope and landscaping that occurs behind the wall, which can be very difficult for our forces to maintain. And it can also attract a lot of people who travel through the area on foot and set up housing and that sort of thing. So this kind of takes care of 2 situations here at once. I want to highlight this little angle point here below the overhead sign. The overhead sign's in purple. Right here where this angle point takes off, that's where the 350 feet difference is between option 1 and option 2. So let me switch to the simulation. So here's a simulation for this option 1 where most of that wall is moved back to the edge of property or near the right-of-way line. The barrier stays on the traffic. That protects the trees because we have to have clearances for trees when we plant trees, so that barrier provides the ability to plant trees in front. So we're talking about doing all of our mitigation then in front of the sound wall and behind. These are oak trees. These are shown rather large. This is probably 15 or 20 years down the line, but regardless, you can kind of see what a big difference it is compared to the previous simulation. This is the section A on option 1. I'm going to back up to show you where section A is. This is where this short little bit of overlap occurs. So because the walls have a gap between them, they do have to overlap each other a little bit. And so this section shows what that would look like. So now you'll see those skyline trees that were in the background on the previous section are now removed. We do the same amount of oak replacement planting in front of the walls. It's visible from the freeway. This particular slide shows that the level is kind of below, depressed still, but it's gaining in elevation as we move along the right-of-way. You can see then that this sound wall here at option A is pretty tall at 24 plus feet. So there's a benefit. You can see in the dash line here where the sound wall used to be. This is the proposed location. So one of the trade-offs, again, is we end up with a taller structure on the railroad right-of-way and the private property right-of-way. That may not necessarily be a negative. It's not necessarily all that visible. The residents that live back there usually aren't focused, their views aren't totally focused towards the freeway and the railroad tracks. So it's not that much of a visual impact, but from the traveling public, it's a vast improvement. This is option 2, and again, you can see right here at the angle point, the wall just stops. And then this wall along the edge of shoulder is extended much longer. And I'll show you a section of how that will look. So then we're back to the existing condition where the wall, for this portion at least, is up on the edge of traveled way. You can see what's happening here with the freeway. I thought it's probably worthwhile to point out that this dash line is the existing freeway. That's the edge of pavement right there. We're widening slightly, and because the freeway is on a super elevation, it's getting taller. So that's why the retaining wall is needed. And you can see the skyline trees remain in the background. If you drive the area now, you'll notice that there is a line of eucalyptus on the other side of the railroad tracks, on the ocean side of the railroad tracks, which still give you a little sense of that skyline element. I should show you that in the, these trees here in the background are not on the freeway side of the railroad. Those are on the other side. So we tried to estimate as best we could to show a reduction in that tree canopy, although there still is some visible from the freeway. So this is the section between the off-ramp and Butterfly Lane. So this is the 850 feet. For this portion of the proposal, options 1 and 2 are identical. And so you'll see there's the freeway barrier on the edge of the traveled way. This dash line is where the sound wall used to be. Now we propose to put that sound wall on a retaining wall, so the slope behind here gets a little less dramatic. There is still somewhat of a slope. Vines would be planted on the Caltrans side of the sound wall with holes cored in the vine to grow on the railroad side. And then we would put a 2-to-1 slope in the back with some rock slope protection or some small boulders that would discourage people from camping out there or using that as a place to take refuge, but it would still allow Caltrans maintenance forces access. This matrix shows the difference in number of trees that would be removed. So right now we have already removed 95 trees. Option 1 would be 40 more trees for a total of 135, and then option 2 would be a total of 114, which is 19 more trees. And so I think the goal here today is to find out if there's an appetite for one of these options, and if so, how far do we take it? As I mentioned, option 1 does require a TCE from the private homeowners. There's no guarantee that we can get that. So in an ideal situation, the recommendation would be pursue 1 or 2 of the options. And if you chose to pursue or recommend we do option 1, acknowledge that we could move forward with option 2 if we couldn't acquire that property to build the sound wall on the right-of-way line. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you so much. Let's open up public comment for item 1.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project, and I see no one in the audience to make a comment, so we will turn our attention over to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual attendance, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this project. So at this time, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, thanks. We will close public comment for item 1 and move to questions from the board. Board Member 6, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. On your option, well, let's go to a site plan, any of them. What is happening? There is a very narrow sliver upstream of between your overhead sign and the first residential property. That very narrow sliver, is that private property that you have to get,
Exactly.
even though nobody is benefiting, what is it?
This is
Somebody's
so-
extended yard?
If pretty much, yeah, so if you can picture this orange line, this is the railroad right-of-way, it continues straight following
Yeah.
that same line. And then that very sliver, narrow, pie-shaped property belongs to that condo complex, which you can see just to the right there.
Okay.
They're not using it for anything at the moment,
Okay.
That we know of.
that we know of.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, good point.
And then, this is option 2. The third section that you showed, the very last section, where is that? Now, I understand that one. That is option 1. That is option 2 when they,
This is both options. They're the same.
Maybe show them on the site plan.
So from this point here at the overhead sign back to Butterfly Lane,
yes,
both options are identical and
right.
look like this.
And then there was a third section. No? Yeah, that,
This is option 1. So this would be removing the trees on the private property, placing the wall on the right-of-way line,
okay.
and then there's a slight overlap. We still need a little bit of a retaining wall on the freeway side. This isn't very long,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 100, 200 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes, there's a lot of graphic information thrown at us. Could you show us on the plan where Section A and Section B are?
Section A. in this
Section A,
location, where
yes.
The two walls overlap. Section B, approximately right here.
So Section A is the one that would require your interaction with the private homeowners. All right, and could you go back to that Section A once again?
And the removal of the skyline trees.
So what we're looking at here, the HOA property line, right-of-way line, I guess I'm confused. What do you need from the homeowners if this is the end result after you work out? So where would the property line be without this?
The right-of-way line wouldn't change, but the existing skyline trees are right on the right-of-way line. So to build that wall, we have to remove these trees. Some are on
Yeah.
our side, some are on their side. And I can't, or the project team can't even move this wall 5 feet over like we did on UP and still avoid those trees.
All right,
And
thank you.
so in order to build that wall, typical construction practice is requiring 5 feet of an easement.
Sure.
Those rights in order to build it in stage, yeah.
Sure.
So that would be a temporary acquire of property rights.
That's all I have, thank you.
Board Member Black?
You talk about the number of trees to be removed, but did you talk about how many trees are going to be planted for these different options? I'm just curious.
No, I didn't. And that's because we have a finite amount of space in this particular location.
Right.
So the replacement trees will be scattered throughout the 4E segment. So this area in front of the sound wall will be filled. There's about 70 plus, 72, 74 trees that span the whole 1,200 feet. Those would continue to go in.
Okay.
Some of those are, we have excess numbers for replacement ratios already, so we're absorbing it some that way. Other ways is we're adding trees to other parts of the site to make up for the removal of trees.
Our landscape architect also confirmed that the same number of trees will be planted for each option. So you don't get any more trees per option. It's really who gets to see the trees. So if we move the sound wall back, you see more trees from the freeway, but you lose the skyline trees in that if you do move the wall back the whole way in option 1. Option 2, you see more trees from the freeway, and you get to keep the skyline trees by that private property triangle. So it's a question of, do you want to keep the skyline trees and see more from the freeway? That's kind of a thing, toss up.
And what are the species of proposed trees? I see oak here, but
They're
are there
mostly oak. They're mostly oak, and then there are a few sycamore.
Okay, so your sycamore is sort of your replacement skyline, more or less? Do you see any need to have more of those versus less of the skyline, especially with this option? You've got this large wall.
Oh, behind the wall?
Yeah.
That would be a question for Christine. I think she needs the space for the oak trees.
Behind the wall, and this one?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the approved wall, so it's mostly.
Right, yeah.
But what
I'm
are
not
you-
really in favor of this one. Go to the other two options, let's say.
So this one, you'd remove the eucalyptus skyline trees.
Right.
But there's not really a lot of space to plant any skyline trees here. You would get oaks. So you'd have,
So is there a requirement for oaks? I mean, are we married to oaks? I mean, I love oaks, but,
I think there's room to do a mixture.
yeah, I guess that's what I'm aiming
I think
at.
we could do a mixture of
Okay.
oak trees and sycamore trees
Yeah.
and any other tree that we would.
And
We're
the
kinda
sycamores would be a lot
sticking
more,
with
lot faster growing, I'm guessing, too.
And as long as we are able to meet our mitigation, but it sounds like we can do that.
Okay. Those are my only questions, and thanks.
Board Member Noon?
I think I've got all this clear. Can you go to the next two slides, or the next one, I guess? The one that, I'm sorry, the sections.
Oh, sections, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, you lose the skyline trees with both options on a portion of it.
For a portion of it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
I think the best way to characterize the difference is option 1 that has that extra 300 feet. There's more trees concentrated in that 300 feet than there are for the whole 800 feet. So it's kind of, it seems to be a good compromise, but again, it's all in the matter of taste.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Board Member Soffren?
Yeah. Are there any sound benefits to these options?
The sound benefits remain the same. That was one of the things we verified before proposing the solution, so
Okay, so there's no improvement
there's no improvement in
for
sound.
anyone's experience on both sides, especially that little wedge with the condo complex.
Yeah, no.
And it's probably beyond purview, but so there's a bunch of extra money, which is why you have the ability to do this. What happens with that money if you don't use it?
Okay, next question. Board Member, are you done with your questions?
I still got to build 4E North.
we're not finished.
Only question is, you mentioned graffiti. Are any of these more prone to graffiti?
Yeah.
In my opinion, the solutions like this you see on the screen, let me go to this. I think this one here might be the least beneficial in terms of avoiding graffiti. That's the existing condition, only because the vines have to grow up that retaining wall to get through the cord holes and then get on the face of the freeway side. The freeway side is probably the most prone to graffiti, I would think. However, the railroad side, so on the railroad side, this is a much larger face. So there's a lot of potential for graffiti here. Again, the vines can be planted close to the ground and cord through. You can put the whole plant through as opposed to waiting for a tendril to get up there and then put it through the wall. So I think we'll have better success at coverage with a situation like this.
That does bring up one point that we had, though. This option 1, mostly you won't be able to see it unless you're on the railroad tracks or on a train. But there is one location behind the Biltmore's parking lot where option 1, you would see a very large wall face on top of the retaining wall from the backside that wouldn't have landscaping unless the vines grow in. Once the vines grow in, you would have landscaping. But that's just the only other point about this option 1.
May I jump in on that? The Biltmore would have plenty of room if it was bothersome to plant screening between them and the offensive wall.
It's their parking lot, so that would be up to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of territory there to develop more screening if so desired.
We'd have to look. I'm not sure how far their parking lot goes to the edge of their property, but there is the railroad tracks in between.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And do you not have trees on the ocean side of the railroad track in this area too?
They're
There are, but
Yeah.
we show them in one of the cross sections, right?
they're tall eucalyptus.
Yeah,
So from the trunks,
Ah.
you could probably see through.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just, that's
sky-
just one
more
place where
skyline,
you would see
if
the
any.
back of the wall.
Okay. The other-
If this sheds any light on that subject, you can see the shadows of these large eucalyptus
Yes.
here. There looks like to be a little gap here. This is the parking lot area.
Mhm.
I
So
get it.
I think there's a
Okay.
planter, and it's not totally dense, but there's some
Okay.
screening.
Just an add-on question, if I may. With the new oaks or whatever in front, in section B, where the planting is in front of the sound wall, have you determined with your arborist that those trees won't need severe pruning and stay out of the drive lanes and so forth, that they would be unsightly? I know
So,
it's 17 feet, but still, if we're looking at a nice canopy tree, it could be suffer because of it constantly have to be cut back to your safety concerns of it overlapping the freeway.
I would say that's a valid concern. This slide right here shows that tree planted dead smack in the middle of that planter bed. We would probably move it back so that it's probably 10 or 12 feet away from the travelway. That barrier is a 2-foot thick barrier at the base. We do have this situation in other parts in the corridor. The one that I'm thinking of is the memorial oaks. I don't know if you recall those down at Toro Canyon. They were taken out with our project, but they were 80 or 100-year-old trees planted in the 20-foot wide median. That was the median, actually. And they were pruned on the edges so that they didn't interfere with the box trucks that come down, especially the large trucks.
I would just hate to see a beautiful natural oak look like a box hedge. So, but if it's not a concern, it looks like there's enough room there, but I wondered if that was passed by your landscape architect if that was a concern.
Yeah, we do struggle with space in the freeway corridor all the time. So, yeah, it's a trade-off. I feel like this is a successful solution for a large number of years. Eventually, it could be an issue where we have to go back and prune.
Could
They
it
also
be,
tended to be slightly, this is a very beautiful tree and everything's proportional, but the ones by the freeway tend to be slightly more towards their location, meaning that they grow more sideways based on the pruning. So they still look nice, but not exactly like that.
and it might inform you of the type of species, maybe more column, more narrow than, because oak trees are beautiful, but they cover, my whole backyard.
White, yeah, a white.
Okay, thank you.
And I just had one follow-up question, just to confirm that pie-shaped private ownership is just one ownership?
It's a condo complex, and it's a HOA
It's just
that
one,
manages it, yeah, so.
Okay.
Chair, I had a follow-up question, and please excuse me if I missed this in your introduction, but you're returning with this project. What led up to the development of these alternatives? Why are we looking at these?
Well, we recognize that this area, there's some flexibility here. We didn't have the opportunity to implement it at the time because we had some funding constraints with our funding. We had to get our funding in place. So we couldn't delay the project to consider these. But looking back, we thought this would be beneficial visually for the traveling public, and it's going to be easier for maintenance long-term. Because the trees planted behind the sound wall are problematic, even the existing ones, because as they die and fall over or need trimming, we can't get equipment behind that sound wall, and there's no place to pull over. So this was seen as a good compromise solution.
So if I read between the lines then to continue with the questions, your preference is for alternate 1 or 2?
It helps
Right.
maintenance.
It helps maintenance.
Yeah. You're able to, there's a maintenance vehicle pull out in, you
Trying
can
to
see
let
that.
you lead us,
Now,
lead
yes,
you.
and-
Yeah.
Okay, my professional opinion as because I'm a landscape architect as well, I prefer option 2 myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the benefit of seeing these trees by the number of folks that drive that freeway every day outweighs the
And
offset.
we were torn as a team,
Yeah.
to be honest, because we recognize the need to have the sound wall on the edge of pavement to save the biggest number overall of trees, right? So on paper, that's great, but most of the people on the freeway would never see those trees. And you could have an unhoused problem behind the wall that would go on for a while before someone could get behind there and address it. The other part is that if we were, for maintenance, it's easier if the wall is close to the right-of-way line. But we don't want to lose skyline trees either. So on our team, that's why we thought we'd come and get your opinion to see what you all preferred. But our team is split, right, on which one is the best option, because more people can see the trees from the freeway side, but there's some skyline trees that we probably could never replace if we take them all.
And just some final kind of input from our landscape architect that's watching remotely. She does say that there could be a mix of trees, sycamores and oaks, and then we could set those trees, rather than planting them in the middle of that 17-foot space, back towards the wall, like Dave was saying. So that confirms 2 of the questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to comments if there's no other questions.
Chair Anderson, if I may, can you please state the name of your landscape architect for the record?
Christine Anderson, Mark Thomas and Company.
Thank you.
Okay, board member 6, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, and option 2 is what I would favor, given that the majority of the skyline trees after the back wall stops are existing in that area. So I think option 2 is the preferred one and is best of both worlds.
Thank you. Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes, I too support option 2, not only on the recommendation of the staff, but the idea that Santa Barbara does value its trees and its image as an arboreal paradise.
Board member Black?
I would agree.
Board member Noon?
I do as well. Sorry. I agree as well.
Board member Sovereign?
Same.
Board member Anderson?
Yeah, I agree. I feel somewhat agnostic on the option, and I wanted to comment that it would be, you talked about planting out the wall with some sort of green and coring through, and I think it'd be nice to see something other than the traditional CMU block wall, or have some sort of lattice or something so that the screening could feel more like a green screen rather than an aggressive retention wall plus cinder block wall. So.
Okay. And then I would support option 2 as well. And then I would just recommend on the tree planting that you would just do the minimum required for mitigation of the oaks. And then the rest would be the mix of sycamores.
No TC.
Oh, no TCE. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct. That would
Option
be faster, right? Option 2 would be faster?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion? Okay, so I'll make a motion for final approval.
Kathy can correct me, but the motion should be for review after final approval, and then your comments would need to state that the plans substantially conform with the plans that received final approval on May 13th, 2024, and then with the comment that you're supporting option 2 and any other comments you'd like to include in that motion.
Okay. So I'll make a motion for review after final, that the plans are in substantial conformance with the plans that received final approval on May 13th, 2024, that the board appreciates the applicant to look at reducing the amount of sound wall along the pavement, that the board supports option 2 that was presented at today's meeting. And that's it.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
for
you
your
all.
consideration.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. You too.
I see you, Dan.
We'll be back next year.
There's a, okay. There is a 10-day appeal period after this review after final, so, thank you. Okay, let's move on to almost to item number 2. Oh, no, I think we're good. This says 350 on here. Okay. Awesome. All right, let's move on to item number 2, 1922 De La Vina Street. This is continued item for concept review. Proposal for a new 1, 3, and 4-story mixed-use development with 39 residential units, a remodel reconfiguration of the existing commercial buildings, a 1,300 square foot storage room, 30 vehicle parking spaces, and 44 bicycle parking spaces. Project is proposed under the city's average unit size density incentive program and state density bonus law. Project requires state density bonus application approval by the Community Development Director and design review by the Architectural Board of Review. Lot line adjustment application processed separately and will result in a total lot area of 0.68 acres. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project will require compliance with the project compatibility findings and urban design guidelines. It was last reviewed on June 24th, 2024 for concept. Anything from staff, or we're good?
If you'd like to review the minutes from the previous hearing, we have those. And Kathy, if you have any
That would
comments.
be great. All right, well, welcome back. Please introduce yourselves and walk us through the changes in your plans and how you've addressed our comments from last time.
Thank you. I'm Bobby Walker from BW Design.
Katie Klein, RRM Design.
And Rachel Hollander with RRM Design.
Thank you. So I think this presentation will have 3 parts for you. The first, before I get into the board comments, we'll be kind of running you through what changes have occurred to our project outside of just the board comments, and part of that will be a little bit of a recap since we have a new board member who hasn't seen the project yet. And then I will walk you through the comments from last time and some of our changes, and then address the design elevations and walk you through those as well. So before jumping into the board comments, these are I have 8 high-level comments for everybody here. The 4th floor massing has shifted so that it is pulling away from the Mission Street side of the project and pushing towards the southeast portion of the project where we drive into the property. And so it's helping to redistribute some of the massing, and that was one of the comments. In the front, another comment, our commercial, we used to have a 5-foot extension on the property that pushed out. We removed that so the commercial frontage is completely linear, as was requested by the board. Additionally, after working through the project, talking to neighbors, working with the tenants, the commercial in the front of the project will not be remodeled. It'll actually be demoed and rebuilt, with the exception of a portion of the property 1930 De La Vina, which I can show you on the site plan. But the area that we know as the bike shop, the barber shop, the hair salon, the cat house, that area will be rebuilt, kind of in place, but to new standards and to new design specifications. Through design development, we've added Spanish articulation as was requested, and more roof height detail, or we played with the roof height and added detailing to the project, which you'll definitely see in the elevations. The trash enclosure was moved. Originally it was right below the residential building. It's been moved to the back of the site and has a covering so it can't be seen from the residential units. The last round you saw a redesign of the plan, which we did to address civil stormwater concerns. So we've maintained that strategy. That's why we have the drive aisle where it is on the project. So stormwater can flow down from an existing water access that's been there for decades and decades. So that's the reason we have the massing pushed to the northwest part of the property. The transformer has been located. We've been working with a utility consultant. So we have some initial findings from SCE of where they want the transformer, how big it's going to be, and how it's going to enter the site. And then additionally, you'll see this in the design elevations. Because we're doing a new commercial, it allowed us more flexibility to rethink how we want to enter the residential portion of the building, so second, third, fourth floor. So we have a much grander, inviting staircase off of De La Vina Street that brings you up into the project, where previously it was around kind of the side of the building because we were trying to respect the previous buildings. Okay. Here I'll be able to walk you through some of your comments. So I want to first address where we shifted the massing on the fourth floor. I believe that was Richard, Board Member 6's comments in the last round. So I'll go to the fourth floor plan to show you here what we did, but we were stacked as a four-story massing here on the northwest portion of the building. So we've shifted this portion of the building 10 feet and this portion of the building 5 feet to the south towards the parking, and we've redistributed that massing over. We were asked to show one other item on this is the access to the property, which shared driveway with one of the other neighbors. So we were asked to show how we actually share that access and that they'll be able to use their property. So Civil put together an exhibit for us that shows their existing garage as well as their existing uncovered parking. So we're showing here how our backup maneuvering works with our proposed drive aisle to allow them to pull out of their spaces. We've removed the portion of the building, I can show you on the site plan AS3, that protrudes out into the right-of-way. And this will be good to look at too, just because there's a few other changes on here. So previously, a portion of the commercial building used to stick out and kind of break up the articulation. So we've kept the linearity here and developed that Spanish articulation on the ground floor. In doing so, you can see here we have commercial still fronting the sidewalk in a similar location, but it'll be completely rebuilt. And then as of now, it's just there are 3 even commercial spaces there in the front. On here, you can also see where we've located the electrical transformer. When Katie gets to her plans, you can see how she's helping to screen that as well on the project. We worked with SE to make sure we could pull it off the street instead of having it right on the corner. And that allows us to make some really nice, a really nice seating area there for the commercial, which I think is going to be really good for the tenant as well as really nice for this neighborhood, that seating area. It's It's not fully articulated yet on the plans, but we were asked to open up the railings on the second or on the third floor of the plan, so that is our intention. We still have kind of solid massing around the staircases and where we want to ground the architectural elements, but between that will either be an open railing or some sort of lattice system. And then we mentioned the trash enclosure is one of the previous comments. Look at the trash enclosure. It was mentioned that if it's under the buildings, are people going to smell that? Or are they going to look down into it? So we relocated that to the back portion of the site here, and it's going to have a cover on it, so you won't be able to see it from the second, third, or fourth floor. There was a discussion about story poles, so it was suggested that if we were able to show the height of the existing sycamore in relation to the building, that may alleviate some of the concerns for needing to see that height comparison. So we've shown it here in these black and white building elevations of the site. If I zoom in here, off the top of my head, I can't remember this height, but so we've estimated it's roughly 56 feet high, that tree. And we're showing it here in a couple elevations about where it stands. So in this southwest elevation, it would kind of be buried it's in the center of the building there behind it. And then here in this northeast elevation, it's not really here on the edge of the property line. It's kind of in the middle of the property. So it would kind of just be this portion above the building in relation. So it's about 15 feet higher than what we're proposing as the top of the building. And then we've added a few sheets here to help create some sort of representation of our building in context to the neighboring lots. I think we were missing that a little bit from the last presentation. So we do that with both these site elevations. You can see here, this is our property 1930 De La Vina that we own. This property where the cursor is the one I was mentioning is, as of now, going to stay and be remodeled. And then the rest of this frontage will be rebuilt, brand new. And then you can see our property line is directly adjacent. It shares a party wall with the neighbor. And then on the southern side of the building, I think the building sections, site sections that we've created illustrate this a little better. But we show the distances to the property line. So I'd say we call this the front of our project here. This is site section 3, De La Vina. So we're 10 feet back from the property line on the front, and we're 5 feet away from the property line in the back with our 1.5 story massing. Then site section 1 and 2 cross-cut through the property. So here you can see at two different locations, our property to the south, we're both 40 feet away from the neighboring building and more than 50 feet away from the neighboring building towards the front of the project. If I jump here into the renders that we put together for the project today, I think I can speak a little more to some of the design changes we've made. So at the front, our design strategy was around, I'm sorry, there's one thing I missed at the very beginning. One of the big design changes is that this portion of the property, which we would call kind of the west corner of the property, used to be all the way up towards the street, very large massing. So what we've done is, instead of having this kind of offset L, we've made the project more symmetrical, so it's more of a U shape. So both of these facades on the second and third floor are roughly even right now in where they set back from De La Vina. So part of that strategy is in reducing the appearance of building height. So we think that this 1.5 story commercial height is appropriate for the frontage here on De La Vina, and it matches the street. Going all the way up maybe 10 or so blocks. You can see here that we've brought in new storefronts, and we've varied each of the storefronts so that each shop appears to be its own entity. And then we've made this residential staircase a central feature of the project. From the front to back, we're attempting to step it back from that 1.5 to 3 story to 4 stories as you go further back on the project. And we think from De La Vina Street, and as you'll see in this kind of render that we have from the coffee shop catty corner to the project, that it does a good job stepping the massing back while still bringing the commercial, while still evenly distributing the massing, I guess, on the site. This is a portion of the project Katie will speak to in a moment, but we've done a decent amount of work to add greenery to what we would call this drive aisle portion of the project. So this area in the front here, we pulled back parking, still providing sight lines, but we're attempting to bring as much seating and retail and commercial engagement to the sidewalk, while also eliminating and reducing the amount of walls and barriers, which was another comment from our last meeting. So I think Katie's done a really good job of proposing walls where it really counts for the commercial, and anticipating a restaurant can go in here and we can really see people out here and engage the sidewalk, while also keeping it open so it's not buffering people from the commercial spaces. Here's a render that we did not have before. This is showing from Mission Street, so you cannot access the project through this portion, but it's kind of the visual of what you'll see from Mission Street. This parking lot is higher than our project, so this, what appears maybe in plan or elevation to be a taller wall, really reduces, I think, when you hide it behind the parking lot and the grade change. And here's that area up above where we used to have a 3-story massing over the podium, and we've put a roof line along here so to reduce the massing so it doesn't appear to be a tall 3 or 4-story massing. And here's that perspective render of how we perceive that the massing is going to be looking from across the street. And so we think that 1.5 to 3 to 4-story massing really sets back nicely with your view as you drive down kind of that Mission Street commute corridor, I think, that everybody knows really well. And I'll just spend a minute here. Hopefully, we might be able to ask for another minute or two for Katie's time. But what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Katie, and then if you guys would like me to walk through the elevations, maybe we get a couple more minutes of time.
Seems to not really be loading, huh? Maybe zoom.
Yeah. Let me go in and out on the. I think we can all see it's over here.
I can open them in the browser instead of Adobe if
Okay.
we want to try that and take a quick break.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Will you go to the ground floor one?
Yes.
So as Bobby mentioned, we've adjusted the landscape based on the changes in architecture. We've left that frontage along De La Vina more open. We have some bike parking. We have entrances varying from colored concrete to pavers with the paving. And then that right corner, we've added some low walls to hide seating and also hide the parking from that seating area. A canopy tree in that corner for dining. The goal is to have some sort of cafe seating and area in that corner area. I want to note this was always on the plans before, but we do have street trees, so that is going to also work with the elevation there. And then for the transformer, we're hiding it, screening it as much as we can from all angles with the clear zones. Right now we're showing a cape rush. And then we're adding in trees wherever we can through the driving aisles. And then also in that frontage where we have a main now staircase up, we've added in some tile benches to kind of have these informal seating areas there as well. And the imagery and materials are mostly the same. If you want to go to the next sheet. So the changes based on architecture here, the patio has now shifted towards the left. The water feature is centered when you first walk up that staircase. And we have large palms growing up through the center courtyard as well, which we had previously. Planting, we have olives and citrus trees, and the materials are mostly the same, I would say. Concrete pavers, tile benches if we can get them anywhere, and pots. And then if you want to go to the next sheet, this has not changed at all. So we're varying paving patterns through each floor just to make each area distinct, each floor distinct. Happy to answer any questions, but that wraps up landscape.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will open up public comment.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project, and I see no one in the audience to make a comment, so we will move on to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual attendance, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this project. So at this time, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment for item 2, go to questions from the board, and we'll start with Board Member Black.
Bobby, you talked about, although it didn't show on your plans, but opening up the railings. Could you just look at an elevation, just show us an elevation and just point out the areas that would be opened up? Because I know you're not showing it now, but.
Yeah, is it okay if I can show you on the, let's see here. So it's tough to see from this elevation because the areas you see from the front elevation are actually like architectural features that are stairs. So I can show you in floor plan. So these are the areas that we want to open up here with the railings. And so for part of the project, we actually, our initial guidance would be to do this railing that we already show on the 4th floor. We want to use a combination of the just open steel railing as well as the terracotta stacked tile.
I have it
You
on.
have that in there, right?
If you go to the back to the 2nd floor, is there an image in there? I might have taken it out.
Yeah, we have it. It might be in our elevation. So it'd be a combination of this steel guardrail and railing, and then stacked terracotta tile within the plaster wall that we show on the 4th floor. I was going to see if I can pull it up in the 4th floor.
So none of that would be visible from the street, per se?
No, no, this is more
It's all tucked
for
back inside?
livability and light in the courtyard, as well as function for each of those tenants. Here's a little illustration of how we're achieving it on the 4th floor. Right here, we're showing a sort of terracotta block that we're stacking.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Board Member Noon?
Can you do one of the renderings looking at the corner by the drive into the?
Yeah, I might, for these, jump back to this. It's a little easier to see in Adobe.
My only question was just the.
This
Yeah,
render here?
Exactly, yeah, just the choice of that low wall. Did you guys consider an open railing there also to separate the space, or was there a?
Yeah, I think it's still open for debate and cost considerations. Currently, the client likes Santa Barbara stone, but we can think about that. It could be a stucco wall, could be, a little bit lower. I think in the back to hide the parking, though, we want something solid.
Okay.
And you like the idea of having a lot of landscaping in front of it, so it kind of really gets buried by the landscaping.
Right. Okay. That's it.
Board Member Soffren?
No questions.
Board Member Anderson?
What would you say is the design concept or concepts for this project architecturally?
Santa Barbara Spanish style.
And it seems like you have a bit of a collage of like formal vocabulary going on here, whether it's the corbelling on those second floor openings in the breezeway, to the navy blue awnings, to the hip roof, to the exposed rafters. So I was just, I'm curious, is there a particular time period that you're looking at, or is it kind of general?
We like the concept of the commercial space being a more contemporary Spanish style than the rest of the residential building, to actually create some separation of use visually on the project. And I think that's what I have as an answer to your question right now.
So are you saying that you like the contemporary at the base, at the plinth of the building, and the rest of it is also contemporary, or the rest of it is what?
The plinth of the building, that 1.5 story commercial, is, yes, a more contemporary Spanish style, and that the rest of the residential portion of the building is a little bit softer in features, and it leans more towards a traditional Spanish style.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Whalen?
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Mr. Walker, I wanted to back up and go over some questions that we had from our previous one that I think you've clarified, but just to be sure. So there's no longer a structure over the existing structures, right? It's all going to be new with the exception of 1930?
That's correct.
That's
So-
just the facade of 1930, but
Yeah, it's just a facade. There's kind of, I don't know if I should go into too much detail on it, but 1930 will either be maintained as is without building over it, and then the rest of it is kind of built around it, or it'll just be just the facade like you're discussing. So nothing will be built over an existing space.
could you show us that on the second floor plan?
Yeah, sorry. So on the second floor plan here,
Where's the area of 1930?
let's see if I can make a box here. Can you all see my cursor here if I do an outline of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1930 is right here. So the idea right now is, that just kind of the facade of 1930 will be kept.
Right, much like was done on the Hotel California, if you
Yeah.
were around for that. All right. Let's see. We also had a question about the use of the adjacent parcel. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to call that the east side if
Okay.
De La Vina runs north-south. There was some question about what it was zoned for and what it was used for. Ms. Kennedy, do you remember that at all? It w- Did
I do
you-
remember that
did-
question, and I can speak to that a little bit.
Very good.
Yeah. So this northeast side here is a commercial property. Those 3 consecutive properties are commercial properties. We don't know the use of, I think it was in regards to a building that's kind of in the center of the site back here. We don't know for sure the use of that site. We did find an ABR record from the 60s that it was potentially the second floor of that building may have been converted to a residence.
Could you go through to your site section that would show your proposed building and that one, just so I get it fixed in my mind?
Yeah. So this site section 3.
Section 3,
Yeah,
that's
so
the one.
this is a 1-story building.
Okay.
This isn't, this is more towards the front of the site. This is more towards Mission Street. So the building that we're talking about with the residential use, that's a two-story building, and the residential use would only be on the second floor of that two-story. So I'll make a note to add that for our next presentation.
Even my poor eyes can show that your building is set back from it there. And then similarly, a question about the setbacks on the wall that separates the Mission Street parking lot from your project. Does that show up on one of these sections? I'm aware at the first floor is the parking plinth, but then what happened, how tall is that wall
I think this may
in
be-
relationship?
This may be the wall that you're talking about here.
No, I'm now redirected my attention around the corner to the wall that separates the parking lot on Mission from your project. Is that one? So the relationship between the top of that wall and those second floor units is what I'm interested in. Did one of your site sections show that?
No, not other than that one I just
Okay.
showed you.
Well, you might elaborate then, what is that relationship between the top of that wall and, let's say, the floor level of second floor level?
We'll make sure that it gets included in the next round.
All right.
Excuse me.
Let's see. And is it fair to assume that the pedestrian entries to the apartments are gated at some point on those stairwells?
Yes, both are gated. I can
Yeah.
show you on the, let's see here, on the floor plan. The second one, the entry from the front will be anticipated to be gated from the top as well as
At the
this one along the side. We, at the moment, anticipated gating it halfway up the stairs.
Easily done. I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
Board Member Six.
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. First of all, to staff, do we need to formally get behind the support for the alternate open space design being up on the second floors, or is that just an administrative thing?
This will be one of their waivers, since it's a state density bonus law project.
So we don't have to support it, or?
So you can give comments on it, but
Okay.
it's a request that they're making.
But we don't have
Taking
to,
advantage
we
of
don't
it.
have to support it to get it through, right?
That's correct.
Okay. How can I say this? I kind of liked the lopsidedness of the C on the first one, given that I'm going to call them north and south wings, okay? That the north wing had the protection of that taller story 1930 building with a very,
Yeah.
and I liked how it snuck up behind it. Is there a technical reason that the north story is pulled back to where it is to protect the structure below? You could easily do a facade, correct?
Yeah,
So you
there's-
can rebuild all that.
There's not a technical reason, I wouldn't
Okay.
say. Part of the consideration is the,
Suppose, so let's go to the north stories. This is a perfect plan right here, right here. You have your two units that are perpendicular to the street at the front of the north wing. Yes. Suppose you had those shifted toward the street and had provided one more parallel unit there and turned the two units that are down there and set, having only one and set it back by far more to the street. Is that a reasonable thing that could be explored?
it's definitely something that could be explored. I don't see a technical reason it couldn't be done.
Okay, well, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I feel that we lost something in this this building seems to be more abrupt to the street than the one before. So I'll leave that, that's out of my questions. Can you go to the sections, primarily the small-scale sections, and looking at your topmost floors of your roofs and your mansards, like the lower right-hand one, or...
Are these the sections you're referring to, the building sections?
Yeah, so can you explain what you're doing on that? You know, there's a very dark line below the, let's go to the topmost section there. Yeah, so there's a, so perfect, let's look at the unit, the one bedroom on the left-hand side there. That's a pristine example. What is the dark line, and how does it relate to the ceilings? How does it relate to your ability to get a decent depth to the mechanical units? And, you know, what, can you explain what you're doing there?
Yeah, so are you asking what the structure of the floor is?
What would be, what
Current-
I'm getting at is some opportunity to lower the surrounding plate heights and deepen the wells, and it doesn't look like either are achieved here.
Right now, we're showing 9-foot plates, and we're anticipating we're leaving space for a 1-foot 4-inch open web joist to be able to run mechanical through.
So what's the big black line there then? That's the joists?
Yes.
No, on the rooftop, the roof one, yes, bingo.
Oh, that's a mechanical. Oh, yeah, that's an area for mechanical equipment.
But what's the black line itself?
Are you asking why there's a gap here?
Yeah.
I think that's a graphical error. All right, that is a graphical error. There should be a little gap here.
So that big black line, the thick back line would be
Insulation and TPO.
EPO, so it's a lot less thicker. It's a lot less thick than you see, and you resulting would be a deeper well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We already talked about open railings. If you go to the northeast elevation, that's composed of the right and left with the indent in the middle. Why is the left-hand side plate height so high as opposed to the north plate height, or the right-hand plate height?
We were varying the plate height to allow a trellis to fit in on this deck underneath.
Could that not be lowered to, that one particular one be lowered to the height of the one on the right?
Yes, I could.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, and the sycamore we so preciously measured by, is that on the property, or is that going to be removed?
That is getting removed.
Yes, okay. Thank you. And I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member 6.
I just have a follow-up question. Can you go to the sections and look at that? It was labeled section 6, but I think it said number 2. I'm not sure. Yeah, that one. Can you show me what is happening at I believe the De La Vina's on the left, correct?
Yes, De La Vina would be on the left.
Okay, can you point to me where that front section is on your plan? Like
This
what's
area here?
Yeah, what's happening there?
That's this 1930. I can show you here an elevation quick too, and then I can go to the plans. But that's this existing 1930 elevation.
And
So we just
what is happening behind there on the plan?
on the as-built, I think it's just a enclosed attic area. We're just not showing a ceiling there. You're
What? On your plan, what is happening behind that front of the building?
It's a patio area. I'll show you on the landscape plans. It'll be easiest to see. Oh. So here's that height, taller height area. And so it's kind of a more protected patio area that's not really seen from the street.
And this is just accessed by the residential people, the people that are renting?
This patio on the second floor?
Yeah.
Yes. So it'll be, both these gates will be locked to be able to get up to that area.
And which way is north? I'm like very confused at the moment.
Yeah, we're kind of calling, as a board,
That's
we're
right,
calling
okay.
this the north elevation. It's kind of northwest.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so it'll be in shade most of the time.
Yes, it'll have a lot of shade time. Here's that site plan just for your, so the true north, you can kind of see it split.
Yeah.
Almost on a 45.
Okay, those are my questions. Any follow-up questions?
I had one follow-up. Could you go to an elevation, just any elevation? That tallest piece there, it's probably like an elevator overrun.
Yes.
I assume you probably can't see that, from the sidewalk or from the surrounding. You probably got to be pretty far away to see that.
That would be my understanding,
Yeah.
probably several blocks away.
Yeah, so it was intentional to just kind of forget about it and leave it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just kind of keeping it as low as possible and then just doing a parapet wall.
Yep. Okay.
Chair Henderson, just one follow-up. Mr. Walker, before I think you kind of get a gist of where my comments would go. Can you maintain your required open area by what I'm suggesting? If it goes the way I'm suggesting it?
Yeah, if I could, our open area, right now we're already asking for a reduction. So we're trying to balance our open area with what we think would be nice and a nice amenity for the tenants, as well as kind of reducing the scale of the building. So we're providing a really nice private space for each of these tenants. So in that regard, we think they're well situated to have a decent amount of open space by sharing what we provided. So I think we can just redistribute or reduce even the open space to accomplish what you're requesting.
Yeah, well, it would seem to me that taking the south building wing back would give you a very sunny open area rather than where Chair Anderson was suggesting that the tall back of that parapet on
18, yeah.
1930.
1930 would be in shade, so, okay. So you think you can maintain your,
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into comments. They're here again for concept, so I say let's focus our comments on some of the design, the compatibility findings. Kind of base your comments around that to give them good direction forward to come back. So, Board Member Black?
I think generally speaking, generally speaking, they've addressed the comments that were made last time. And I think the project's come a long ways, and I think I have sort of a positive attitude toward it. I like the way this particular elevation, the southwest elevation, is articulated. It's sort of a little busy for my taste, but I think architecturally, I think it works. That's all.
Board Member Noon?
Yes, I would agree with that. I'm supportive of the direction and appreciate the attention to the comments. Look forward to more.
Board Member Soffren?
Yeah, I really like the project. I think you guys are doing an outstanding job. I disagree with Commissioner Six's comments about changing, I think this is great, what you've done so far.
Board Member Anderson?
I find the street elevation and the overall massing and style busy and confused stylistically. I think it could benefit from a little bit more focused design concept. I think it could benefit also from simplification of the actual formal vocabulary being used in the architecture, and I think it's kind of a little bit at odds with itself. I think the continuous roof line across the entire top floor is kind of ironic given the attempt to articulate all these kind of different roof conditions from gable to hip throughout the entire elevation. And I think it could benefit from giving more space to the landscape design and the landscape architect. If it's about a courtyard and if there is an attempt to incorporate some sort of formal approach, then through the grand stair condition, then I think the landscaping should be a little bit more celebrated. And I think in terms of the urban design guidelines, it doesn't really work with one of the stated goals, which was to preserve the mountain views and the experience of the site. I actually live about a block from here, and so I'm imagining this kind of Mediterranean, generic Mediterranean style villa, and it definitely would be very kind of hard to see what is kind of the primary face of the Santa Barbara mountain side as visible from the downtown. So those are just a few comments. Thanks.
Vice Chair Whalen?
I would support all of Member Anderson's comments to the point of stylistic change between the street elevation and the upper elevation. I think he's dead on with that. To the massing, which you responded to, it occurs to me it's a bit of a whack-a-mole where it got reduced on the second and third floor, but it just shifted from one side to the other. And I'm not sure how successful that is. I think that ties into Mr. Anderson's comments. Again, on his stylistic completeness, I counted 2 arches, one at the storefront and one at the pedestrian entry off the side. It seems to me that as an element of this style, it should be more forthcoming throughout the design rather than just a couple here and there. This a previous comment was more variation in the windows and doors, and here on this lower elevation, you can see that it's just a bit too repetitive. I don't think the small vertical windows are in character with what you're trying to achieve stylistically, but certainly a variation in the window types, and staying to that elevation. On the left-hand side, which would be the southwest corner, it's a bit of a sheer wall. Even though De La Vina is one direction going in the other way, I do think that it has a rather massive impact, compromising the aesthetic that you're trying to achieve. I might suggest that the balcony on that would be between the second and third floor, that line be extended across as a bit of a datum, or somehow to break up that vertical wall mass. I do appreciate how you've handled the trash cans in a separate location, and that in general, the facades have improved, but at the same, that is on the De La Vina Street. At the same time, I would like to see that aesthetic through the rest of the building, as I reiterate. Member Anderson pointed out these long eaves that are prominent on the second and third floor are working against what you've achieved on the De La Vina facade. And again, on the De La Vina facade here, And I think on the other side too, I question the use of open railings on these small units. As I've said in previous projects, they tend to just be collection points for bicycles and surfboards and whatnot, while not disregarding those on the interior of the courtyard, which member 6 said, pointed out might open up the space. I think these will work against the overall tenant well-being. Then that perhaps they should be more solid to restrict a view. I don't really see them as being usable. They're more ceremonial, and in that regard, well, I've just seen too much of that happen on Isla Vista. Those are all of my comments. Thank you.
Board Member 6?
Okay, first of all, overall, thank you for all these improvements. I think it's really come a long way and is going in the right direction. Overall, compatibility-wise, thank you for the extended renderings and so forth. But, you know, this building is not compatible with the existing neighborhood. But this area is slated for more dense development, and therefore I think that it could be compatible with a future neighborhood. So not compatible now, but I think that given the attitude in the city for housing and so forth, that I think that I'll let that one slip and go forward with it being non-compatible with the existing neighborhood. As I intimated in my questioning, I would like to see the north wing sneak up behind the facade of, I'm going to forget that damn address again, 1930, and have the south wing pull back a full unit and provide your open space on that side rather than on the north side behind the tall facade. I would like to help, and I go into detail, and I hear what people are saying about busyness and a stylistic jarring, and I think that one of the things that makes the upper floors, they're more housing these separate windows and so forth adjacent to the doors and so make it very residential as opposed to the bottom floor, which, and for instance, let's go to the south elevation or the elevation below. If one could take those narrow windows and abut them as a third light or a side light to the doorway, you would have only one opening per balcony. And it would still get your functional, have your vent window. And I think you would be really stunned to see how that would begin to take off, reduce that residential look. And I think there's many other places around the elevations that same type of thing could happen. That I think you would be pleasantly surprised how it would begin to, create a more less residential look. And addressing, I concur with the busyness. If we look at the upper if we look at the front elevation, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of facades and so forth. If I frankly would see that whole thing, except for 1930, as a flat parapet all the way across, and with your awnings and so forth, with the exception of a little spring of an archway above the stairway that pops up to indicate this, above the parapet to indicate the stairway, that you could simplify that elevation significantly. I think that the board is confused on this elevation by your rendering. The top mansard is not continuous across there. It goes way back in the middle. And it looks like it's continuous, but it's not, so that would help. This one apartment on the third floor, the wide gable, there is a very obvious area where the balcony should not go the full width of the element and should have open railing of some sort. I agree that the railings should not be so open to look at junk, but I don't think they should be full plaster. I think that some material, screening material that's more dense, that would work. I really want to make sure that the planting in the, I appreciate the development of the area below the drainage area. Would want those trees to be significantly high and the species that would eventually be skyline. And I don't think that wood is a good choice for your, if that is wood, for your trash doors that get really beaten up real fast. I was going to suggest some moldings and a little mini tower above your elevator, but I think what's your name?
I forgot.
Steve. Mr. Noon has suggested as, I'll leave that alone. I think that he had a good point that it wouldn't be seen. On your back elevation, as I suggested, it seems to me that you could lower that parapet on the right-hand side. No, I'm sorry. Yes, right there. The left-hand side, I'm sorry, the left-hand side, your third floor tile roof there. Seems to me that could come down. And somebody mentioned the long, continuous eaves and so forth. Is there might be places where you can have a super extended eave with corbels, you know, like above a roof, a door opening or something that kind of breaks that long continuous thing. That I think that in the reality, most experience, you only be looking up under the eaves, so the height of what you see in these flat elevations of those low roof, the roof mansards is not important, but the continuousness of the eaves from under is. And I would like to see more resolve or studies to show that your mechanical roof equipment will not be visible with such a shallow roof well. I would restudy the parapeted boxes on the 4th floor. I think we talked about those being gabled. Could they not be gabled? I think they're kind of, they don't quite fit with things as a flat parapet. I have a little friend that looks at these things very carefully. And if you go to A7, your north wing, yes, your north wing down sheet, 2 apartments have a private balcony that's shared by 2 units. Oops. Okay. And that's it.
Okay, and then I'll just follow up with a couple things that I noticed. I appreciate what you guys have done since the last time you were here. I do think our first comment may not have been fully addressed. We talked about further setback on that southwest elevation versus the northwest corner. And I think right now the design does not respond well to just the environment and the solar setting of the sun. I do think that the architectural style is going in the correct direction as far as for neighborhood compatibility of architectural design. I think your mass, bulk, and scale is getting there. I think, like we mentioned, pushing the northwest and south corner, pushing those around, I think is going to help you out. Simplifying the openings will also help you out. And I think it's important for the next step to, like, as was mentioned, to look at mechanical equipment and solar locations and confirm that you have enough space for all of that. And then there was a little, I think you might want to just study the exiting of the stair on that south side next to the transformer. It just looked like there wasn't enough room, or they would walk right into the transformer. So just consider that. Maybe planting something or directing them away from that. Yeah, and I think everything else that has been said about the style was appropriate. Okay, so they are here for...
Pardon the interruption, Chair Anderson. If I may, I confirm that Board Member Anderson should not participate in the motion and abstain from the vote because the parcel is within 500 feet of where he lives and on the conflict of interest map. So,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
You're off the hook.
All right. Okay, so we're here for concept. I'd say let's direct our comments, like I mentioned, our motion for project compatibility findings, so when they come back for a preliminary, that we can hopefully give that to them. So who would like to make a motion?
Chair Anderson, also, could you mention story poles since that was brought up last time, if you've made a decision about, if you're ready to make a decision about requiring those or not?
Yeah, can we just do a quick straw vote? Should should they be required to install story poles? Yes or no? Oh yeah, how should we do this? Raise our hands? How would you guys prefer this?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Who thinks they should install story poles? Raise your hand. Okay, great. That does not pass. Okay, who would like to make a motion?
If you have the patience, I will. Ms.
I have
Anderson?
patience. I'm good with that.
All right, I think that the project is moving in the right direction. The architecture and the detailing has come a long way. We appreciate the attention to our last comments. Do we need a straw vote on the shortening of and readjustments of the right and left wings of the third and second and third floor, or is everybody in support of that?
Okay, raise your hand if you're in support of the readjustment of the second and third floors on the two wings, the front of the two wings.
You say raise your hand if you're in support?
If you are in support. So 4-2.
All right, so it's encouraged that the second and third floors be readjusted to provide the north wing closer to the street and nestle in back of the tall parapet of 1930, and that the south wing be reduced by 1 unit and turn 90 degrees to increase the distance of that south wing from the street and provide your balance of open yard on the difference between in the provided set and the increased setback. To refine and provide answers to concerns for the rooftop mechanical screening and areas for the solar. That the front elevation storefronts be simplified, and I won't go into details on how to do that, but that the residential portions of the elevations the openings be restudied to group the various residential type windows to more formal Spanish by side lights and other means. Suggest that the parapeted boxes on the fourth floor be changed to gable ends to match some of those occurring on second and third floor. to study varying the roof overhangs, particularly at the longer continuous roof overhangs, by extending them out and corbelling them, or doing minor variations to them to break up their continuous the amount the amount that they are to what am I trying to say here? To break up their continuation length, to study the solid balconies, the solid balconies still remaining on the project, to open them up, to lighten them up, and to study the resulting iron balconies to not be entirely open, but enclosed somewhat, to partially screen the occupants' possessions on the balconies. I think one of the first comments would be that the board still is uncomfortable with the compatibility with this small-scale neighborhood, but recognizes that the neighborhood is slated for more density in the future, and that the size of the project addresses the much-needed housing in this area. I think that's it. Is there anything I missed?
I'll second that. And there was just one thing I wanted to follow up on. You mentioned to reduce one unit. Can we just say relocate instead of reduce?
Yes, relocate. Was that on the south wing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to offer a couple of amendments, that the proponent continue to refine the architectural character to more genuinely reflect Santa Barbara's historic nature and be consistent throughout all the floors, one. And two, and Mr. Black can help me on this one, that the courtyard be refined and developed as a primary space for the residences.
I will accept those additions.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
No.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Board Member Noon, would you like to say why you said no?
I didn't agree with the, I think, I don't remember if it was the second or third board, but the shifting around, and just in general, I felt like there was maybe a little too much overreach. I felt like they had come a long way with our previous comments, and that maybe this was a little too much.
Okay,
Is
thank
all.
you. Okay.
You know, for the record, I changed mine to no also for the same reasons.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we will adjourn our meeting for today.